Welcome to Mrs. E English Skills. I'm Mrs. E and today we're looking at apostrophes. Why is the apostrophe probably the most misunderstood and misused piece of punctuation? Well, that might be because we forget some of the rules associated with them. Once we learn and practice these rules, apostrophes are easy. Let's look at rule number 1. We use an apostrophe to show that letters are missing, and this is called omission. So some examples of omission. Could not. We take these two words, we stick them together, and we use an apostrophe to show that we've taken the O out of not, and it becomes couldn't. They are. Another two words we can stick together to become their or their. I will, we change to I'll using an apostrophe, and will not we change to won't using an apostrophe. You'll notice that won't is slightly different to the ones above, and that's because will not originally used to be wannot. You can Google this and have a little look, but essentially this is something you just have to remember. Another thing you have to remember with omission is where to put your apostrophe. Sometimes people get them in the wrong place. I remember I used to write couldn't, C-O-U-L-D apostrophe N-T. But where there's a not, the apostrophe always goes where the O should have been. There are lots of omission apostrophes and you can look at these up yourselves, but we'll do some practice in this video. Let's look at some common omission errors, and these centre around homophones. So these are words that sound the same, but they're spelt differently and they have different meanings. Your versus your. What we have here is U apostrophe RE versus YOUR. So what's the difference? Well, following the rules for omission that we've learnt on the previous slide, we can work out that U apostrophe RE is short for UR. When wouldn't we use an apostrophe? Your, Y-O-U-R, means belonging to you. For example, your mind is blown. In order to check if we've used the right your, we could say you are. If it fits, we would need the apostrophe your. If it doesn't fit, we would need the non-apostrophe your. For example, your mind is blown. Well, that doesn't make sense. So it must be the Y-O-U-R, your. Try this yourself when you're doing your own writing. There, and there. This is a little more tricky, as there are 3 options rather than 2. But following the rules for omission, we can work out that they apostrophe RE is short for they are. But when would you use the other 2? You'll need to learn and practice them in order to avoid confusion. So there, T-H-E-R-E, is a place. For example, my house is over there. Whereas there, T-H-E-I-R, means belonging to them. I really like their new car. Go over this and practice regularly to avoid this confusion. Finally, its versus its. It apostrophe S versus its without an apostrophe. Again, following the rule for omission, you can work out that it apostrophe S is short for it is or it has. But when wouldn't we use an apostrophe in it? Can you think of an occasion? To test yourself, Pause this video here and see if you can work this out before I reveal the answer. Okay, did you get it? Well, it's without an apostrophe means belonging to it. So the chair has lost its leg. Like we did with your, if we say it is and it doesn't fit, we know we don't need an apostrophe. For example, the chair has lost its leg. Doesn't make sense, so we wouldn't need an apostrophe. They are just a few common omission errors for you to look out for and to practice. Task 1. Apostrophes for omission. Change the underlined words so that they require an apostrophe. We have I am going to visit my friend this afternoon, and I would like you to change I am so it requires an apostrophe. So stick them together. Do this for all 5 of these examples. Pause the video here to have a go before I reveal the answers. Okay, let's look at the answers. Number 1. I am becomes I'm. I apostrophe M. Number 2. She is becomes she's. She apostrophe S. Number 3. Will not becomes won't. WON apostrophe T. And I have becomes I've. I apostrophe VE. Number 4. Could have becomes could've. Could apostrophe VE. And would have becomes would've. Would apostrophe VE. And number 5. Is not becomes isn't. ISN apostrophe T. And are not becomes aren't. AREN apostrophe T. How did you do? Let's look at rule number 2. Apostrophes for possession. So what is an apostrophe for possession? Well, when we have an owner and a possession right next to each other in a sentence, we require an apostrophe to show possession. Now don't think of an owner and a possession as a literal meaning of those 2 words. It's just within the sentence who owns what or what owns what. For example, Joachim's book, the sofa's cushions. In these 2 examples, Joachim owns the book and the sofa owns the cushions. But it could be Jennifer's dreams are to have a wonderful life. In this sentence, dreams would be the possession, even though you cannot physically possess it. You will notice that the apostrophes for possession are on the owners. And this is something that does not change. So think to yourself, always the owner, never the possession. The apostrophe always goes on the owner, never the possession. Task 2. In order to help you identify where to put an apostrophe, it is useful to be able to spot the owner and the possession in each sentence that you write. So for this task, I would like you to identify the owner or owners and the possession or possessions in the following sentences. Pause this video in order to have a go at this task before I reveal the answers. Let's look at the answers. What I've done is I've put the owner or owners in pink and the possession or possessions in blue. Number 1. Jessica is the owner and house is the possession. Number 2. Mrs. Stevenson is the owner and cat is the possession. Number 3. The dog is the owner and the lead is the possession. Number 4, the players are the owners and flags are the possessions. And number 5, the book is the owner and the chapters are the possessions. How did you do? There is a tricky one in here, and that is number 3. Did you put Carly as the owner? Remember, in order to have an owner and a possession apostrophe, a possession needs to be right next to the owner. And in this case, there is no possession next to Carly, but there is a possession next to the dogs. And remember also, the apostrophe goes on the owner. So for this task, an easy way of seeing if you've got the answers correct is to check that your owners have got the apostrophe in them. There's a second part to the apostrophe for possession rule, and that is that it tells us how many owners we are talking about. And this tends to be one of the rules we forget when it comes to apostrophe usage. So, if we have one owner, Sarah's bag is from H&M, Sarah is only one person and she owns the bag, where does the apostrophe go? Well, the apostrophe goes before the S. But if we have more than one owner, the girls' dresses were beautiful. Imagine there's 4 girls, each wearing a dress. Where does the apostrophe go? After the S. And it tends to be this part of the rule that people might forget. Okay? What is the point in doing this? Why do we move the apostrophes? Well, the reason is, if we didn't put the apostrophe after the S on girls, we wouldn't know if this was one girl with a wardrobe full of dresses or more than one girl each wearing a dress. The only way we can tell is where we've put the apostrophe. Rewind this video to play this again if you're not quite sure. Task 3. Once you're sure you're confident with the rule for one owner versus more than one owner, have a go at this task. Insert the apostrophes into the correct places in the sentences below. Pause this video so you can have a go before I reveal the answers. Okay, let's look at the answers. So, number 1, have you been to Michael's house? And because there's only one Michael, the apostrophe goes before the S. Number 2, the sailor's hats. There must be more than one sailor because there's more than one hat, so we would put our apostrophe after the S on sailors. Number 3, all of the birds' nests. So all of suggests there's more than one bird, so the apostrophe will go after the S. Number 4, the butterfly's wings were beautiful. How many butterflies are there? Well, there's more than one because it's spelt in its plural form, I-E-S. If there was only one butterfly, we would use a Y rather than an I-E-S. And number 5, the door's lock was broken. Only one door, so the apostrophe goes before the S. You can see on each of these, number 1, Michael is the owner and house is the possession. Number 2, sailors are the owners and hats are the possessions. Number 3, birds are the owners and nests are the possessions. Number 4, butterflies are the owners and wings are the possessions. And number 5, the door is the owner and the lock is the possession. How did you do? Let's look at the final rule regarding apostrophes. With a lot of rules in the English language, there tend to be exceptions. And this exception is for the apostrophe for possession rule. And it concerns plural words, so words that mean more than one, that do not end in S. Can you think of any words that mean more than one that do not end in S? Words such as women, men, children, people. In a previous example, we saw the word girls. The singular form is girl, and in order to make it plural, more than one, we just add an S. So girls is more than one. That's not the case for these words, and there are more examples of these type of words. But for words that do not end in S, that do mean more than one, the apostrophe will go before the S. So the men's toilet is along the corridor. We will write men apostrophe S. The children's playground is that way. We would write children apostrophe S. So this goes against the rule for possession, where we say for more than one, we put the apostrophe after the S. For these exceptions to the rule, you need to learn and practice in order to remember them and not make mistakes. Task 4. Consolidation. Insert the apostrophes into the sentences below. These apostrophes could be apostrophes for omission or apostrophes for possession. At the end of each sentence, I have put the number of apostrophes that we require in brackets. So for number 1, there are 3 apostrophes missing. For number 2, there are 2 apostrophes missing. Pause this video to have a go before I reveal the answers. Okay, let's look at the answers. Number 1. Sandra's before the S, painting wasn't between the N and the T, as good as Barbara's before the S. Number 2. The restaurants before the S, staff couldn't between the N and the T cope with the amount of bookings, and there weren't between the N and the T enough tables. Number 3. I'm, I apostrophe M, going to John's before the S, house for the weekend, and I'll, I apostrophe double L, take Rosie with me. Number 4. The men's before the S team thought they'd, between the Y and the D, win, but nothing could have, between the D and the V, prepared them for the challenge. And number 5. I'd, between the I and the D, like you to take hold of your cats after the S name tags and put them next to the judges after the S tables. How did you do? If you struggled with this task, then re-watch the video in order to double check that you understand all rules associated with apostrophe usage. It's also a good idea to revise apostrophes for several weeks until you know you've got a solid understanding and you can use apostrophes correctly in your own writing. Thank you for watching. If you've liked this video, be sure to subscribe, like and share. Check out my other videos to keep improving your English, and if you have any questions regarding the content of this video, just pop them in the comments below. I'm Mrs. E, and I'll see you soon.